People who were born deaf but gained hearing later in life, what objects did you expect to make noise? Seems like everyone is answering the reverse. My friend got his hearing at age 6. He swears to this day that he thought flowers would make some sort of noise and that's what attracted bees. Not me. My good friend who's hard of hearing told me about how, before he got hearing aids, he thought that all fridges made a beeping sound, like an alarm, when you open them, so the house knows when you're getting something. Turns out his mom just told him that to stop him from eating all their snacks. Obligatory. Not me, but my godfather/dad's lifelong best friend. He was born with hearing, but lost it before age 2 due to some health issues. Went his entire childhood deaf, and in his 20s finally got a hearing aid. At the time, he and his wife were living in the downtown of a large city. Apparently he had it about 2 weeks before he threw it out, saying everything was too loud. He hated the noise and sound, that things were more peaceful without it. 15 years later, he moved out into the country on a few hundred acres of woods. Still, he refused to wear a hearing aid, and kept refusing for the next 10 years. Finally, his wife convinced him to give it a try, and his mind was blown. He couldn't believe how quiet everything was, and how much he enjoyed hearing. He finally explained that he thought the noise of the traffic downtown was the wind, and that it sounded like that everywhere, all the time. So, for 25 plus years, he thought wind sounded like the hundreds of cars driving by. My 3-year-old son is deaf, and we just had a visit this morning from his signing teacher who is also deaf herself. She recently had cochlear implants fitted, and while we were talking/signing she said, "I'm sorry, I can't concentrate. I can hear a horrible constant noise. It's not stopped the whole time I've been here." Turned out it was the rain on my conservatory roof. My girlfriend is not deaf, but she is hard of hearing, which for her means that she can't hear high frequency sounds. She recently got hearing aids that amplify the frequencies she can't hear, and was shocked to find out that birds and crickets chirp, to the point that she thought the birds were trying to attack her, and was horrified that we were surrounded by millions of bugs when I explained what the crickets were. My girlfriend is not deaf, but she is hard of hearing, which for her means that she can't hear high frequency sounds. She's all about that bass, no treble. Not me, but when I was in high school a bunch of kids would meet in a nearby no man's land and hang out before school started. I spent most of my mornings loudly talking to my almost deaf friend. One day he showed up and said he had a new hearing aid. I didn't have to yell at him to get him to hear me anymore. Yay. Few minutes later he asked what that noise was. I asked which noise, listening and hearing nothing out of the ordinary. I don't know. It's like a weird beeping, almost musical, really bizarre but actually kind of pleasing. Took me a minute to realize my man was hearing birdsong for the first time in his life. Was a pretty cool moment. Edit. I now realize this is maybe the opposite of what was being asked. I was born with tons of fluid in my ears and only had very slight hearing at best. When I was 6 months old, I had a surgery that put tubes in my ears to drain the fluid. My mom says, when I came home from surgery, I went to my toy box and shook every toy in it to see what sounds they made. Honestly, it wasn't that serious, but did lead to some auditory processing issues, and I had to see a speech therapist until I was 7. Crazy what a difference 6 months of hearing makes that early on. My old roommate in New York City got implants at, I think he was 25 or 26. He was shocked that the radiators in the house didn't make noise. He could feel them, and was absolutely sure, given their shaking and vibrating from time to time, that they were going to be quite noisy. On the flip side, he was deeply annoyed by the buzz of fluorescent lighting, which he did not expect to make noise. My cousin was born deaf, and went through an operation to recover part of his hearing when he was 12. He sometimes uses hearing aids, but can get by without them in general. His family had a bunny, Tupu. Of course he had learned about cows mooing, cats meowing etc. before he had his surgery. He was very shocked when he came home and greeted his bunny that it made no sound. It took the longest time for him to understand that bunnies are pretty quiet animals in general. He explained he thought all pets were loud. My dad was born with severe hearing loss, but it wasn't detected until he was 50. His parents just thought he was ignorant if he didn't answer them. It's quite sad actually. His parents definitely failed him. He is also dyslexic and it's affected every part of his life and self-worth etc. Anywho, my mum told him he needed a hearing test because the TV was starting to deafen her. He thought, oh, it's just years of loud music and using a shotgun occasionally. So he has this hearing test and some other tests etc. and gets told he was actually born deaf in one ear and significant loss in another. He can't hear phonics. You can imagine his problems through life. He finally gets hearing aids and the first day he sits down to eat a packet of crisps, he absolutely flips out. What the F is that noise? Holy shxt, my head is exploding. We had to explain you can hear the crunching of food etc and some foods are louder than others etc. It was heartbreaking to see what he's missed out on. Now he only uses his hearing aids after a good nag from my mum. We still have to put up with his noisy eating, but he's back to ignorance is bliss lol. Again obligatory not me, but my dad progressively went deafer as life went on, and was almost 100% deaf by around age 20. He got a cochlear implant when I was around 7 years old, put them in, asked my mom are the kids always this damn loud, and proceeded to take the cochlear implant off, so he didn't have to listen to my little brother and I yelling. Always thought that was funny. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more future content.